Welcome to the course introduction of Preparing for Voice over IP. My name's David Zemny, and I'll be your instructor in this course. In this course, we want to go through the historical events, or for that matter, the history and the background of telephony. So how we can evolve to a next generation voice communications. That is, how do we use, leverage our knowledge base of the existing circuit switch telephone networks, recognize that we'll still have to interface with them for years to come, but make this transition to fully digital communications using the vast resources of packet networks. So it's very important that we understand where we came from, and so we can make better decisions on how we get to the next generation. So in doing that, we're going to review circuit switch telephony, take a look at quality of service issues, how the issue of quality of service is addressed in circuit switching, and then our challenge is what must we do in packet switch networks to ensure that the same quality of service can be imparted to our voice traffic when it's being transported over an internet protocol network. So another thing that's very important is using the packet networks to our advantage. We know that we can get very robust and cost-effective communications and support for our data applications, but how are we going to pull this off for giving the same robustness and still providing some cost reduction in moving our streaming applications over to IP? So we need to evaluate the business case here in voice over IP. And we know unless there's some money savings involved, then maybe we won't be compelled to do it. We need to contrast and compare circuit switch telephony with voice over IP. We'll do that. We'll also review convergence models for aggregating traffic in packet switch networks. Do we do it at a transmission level, a network level, or an application level? So all of the things that we will use in the development part of the course is going to be tied to this business of how can we use these protocols to our advantage, and what changes need to be imparted to these protocols to make them work better for streaming applications. So a very important aspect beyond establishing the fact how we can get the data to flow for communications purposes in the network is how do we deal with creating and removing a call in voice over IP as compared with the signaling processes found in traditional telephony. So we'll need to understand the signaling processes that we have to deal with and recognize that in enterprise level deployment of voice over IP, we're going to have to be able to make some changes, make some adaptations. So that brings us then to the real gist here is the challenges and the benefits. What's the trade-off here in the technology? We know the benefit will be reduced costs for telephony services, but the challenge is to ensure that the performance of this service is on the same par as what we've been receiving all along from the old telephone companies. Course prerequisites for those of you who would really like to get into the detail, even more so than here, is I would recommend the telecommunications and data communications essentials courses. So that would be good. And if you already have the background, then that'll make the material that we cover ever so much more enjoyable. So our topics in this course will be establishing first the business case for voice over IP. Why are we doing this? What's the compelling reasons? And then we need to take a very hard look at communications networks and understand that we may be using IP, but communications networks that are in place are there supporting data. So are these the same data networks that would be supporting our voice traffic? In many instances, the answer is yes. So we must understand the strengths and weaknesses in communications networks in general. So we need to understand networking concepts, have a good, strong acceptance of protocol models that are associated with data networking. And if we bring the phone system, if we bring voice over IP into our enterprise, then that means we are going to have to be aware of the strengths and weaknesses and the behavior and the architectures and the performance of our local area networks. Because all of these then, from a telecom to a datacom standpoint, all of these networks and their associated protocols are going to have to handle our streaming traffic, our voice traffic. So that brings, where are lands going? What do we look for in the change? And we can always make stuff work by expanding the capacity and raising the bandwidth. But is that alone sufficient for being able to safely deploy voice over IP? So LAN switching, we'll say how this works in concert with higher speeds to improve the performance of all applications in our networks. So another issue would be restrictive traffic associated with virtual LANs. We'll see how that would figure into a voice over IP deployment, whether it is important or something that you would prefer to work around. Are there security issues? Is this a good idea? So we also want to look in detail at circuit switch wide area networks. What services are available in the circuit switch WANs? Then we need to do a little telephony traffic analysis, take a look at modem behavior. A lot of this will be how we can actually adapt signals into and out of wide area network systems. Some of the other services from a wide area network that are both circuit switched and always on technologies are integrated services digital network and digital subscriber lines. Will these be a part? Yes, all of these can be underlying technologies, and you must understand how to configure them, how they behave, to see whether they can support the voice over IP as an application. SONET and SDH often will form a hidden backbone of support for some of your data traffic. And now, could this also then include the data as voice? And the answer is yes. We'll want to look at the strengths and weaknesses there. So that leaves us then to how we can best implement through a strong background with all of these technologies, get voice to run seamlessly and efficiently over Internet protocol. The whole world is moving to IP. Just because the whole world's doing it doesn't mean that we should leap before we look. So the whole idea here is to look in detail at the underlying technologies, many of which will stay hidden from view until we decide to start to probe. So we've got to understand them all. Then we can make voice over IP work. Other technologies, asynchronous transfer mode, allegedly a new packet switch technology that's been around since 1974. So it too has some functions, some features that can be used to augment the performance of voice over IP. We want to look at some of the options and requirements, though, for deploying a voice over IP type of network. And a very important issue here, once we've talked about traditional telephony signaling with SS7, then we need to take a look at the, and we can't look at all of the signaling protocols, but we'll mention several that are getting a strong support and take a look at of the two that are most currently used right now. So we'll see that, remember, if we signal in a traditional circuit switch environment, we still have to perform signaling here. And how does that impact the performance of our data network, since the data network now is handling the voice traffic, the data traffic, and other control traffic for our voice over IP network? And that leaves us then with the, well, how do we get there from here? Some suggested models for how you should consider a movement to voice over IP. If you're a real small operation, you may just need peer-to-peer type of communications. Then you can look at services that are running voice over IP, from ISPs to other entities that have distributed infrastructures. So, and then the other one is how do you migrate to voice over IP in the enterprise? How do you construct some business-wise savvy models for making the change incrementally from no IP to all IP-based voice communications? So a recommendation of courses that might be of interest to you: Datacom, Telecom, TCP/IP, IPv6, and all of these would be good experience levels for you to have to tie in with voice over IP. If you have any questions at any time throughout the modules in these courses, then be sure to use the question comment box at GoGo. So let's get started.